All right, welcome back, everyone. Time for the Malzberg panel. A little out of order, but sometimes we do things out of order because we can. Joining us now is Newsmax contributor, professor of economics at University of Maryland, and of course, economist Peter Morici, and Kevin Jackson, who was with us in the previous hour, radio talk show host and author. Hello, gentlemen.
Hello, nice to be with you.
Well, good to talk to you, Peter. And Kevin, are you there?
Maybe he heard that I was coming and he decided to leave.
All right. Kevin is flying in. I see him in the distance. He's bearing left and tilting right. All right. Anyway, Peter, let me start with you and let me ask you this: more than 100 McDonald's employees and some labor and clergy members arrested after they protested for the increased wages near the chain's headquarters in Oak Brook, Illinois. I got a feeling, just my opinion, that the labor leaders might have instigated that. But regardless, this ridiculous move for $15 an hour McDonald's workers and fast food workers, it's been going on for quite some time. Is it accomplishing anything, or is it just becoming a joke?
Well, it's one of the mechanisms the Democrats are using to put the Republicans on the defensive in the fall elections. So in that sense, it's successful. The whole thing is ludicrous. Certainly the unions are behind it. I've had the pleasure of debating some $8 an hour workers on national TV, and they are awfully well scripted for people who are only earning $8 an hour. Let's talk about what $15 an hour means. In New York City, that would mean, along with the other benefits that are mandated by the city, such as sick leave and so forth, that just the financial cost of the job to McDonald's would be in the range of about $42,000 to $45,000 a year. Now, you got to remember, this is someone who takes an order, number 6, opens a bag or puts out a tray, and then puts French fries, a hamburger, and a Coke on that tray and hands it to you.
And gets it wrong, usually.
The computer even computes the change. You give her a $10 bill, and she says, well, yours was $7.77, Mr. Malzberg, so I'm going to give you back $3.23. She doesn't have to compute it in her head the way I just did. Now, is that worth $45,000 a year to any employer? I don't think so. You add into that fast food worker also will get an earned income tax credit, perhaps, food stamps, the Medicaid benefits if they have dependents and so forth. It starts to become, pretty good. Even at $8 an hour, these people are fairly well compensated when you consider all the government benefits. So when I get on TV and this young woman says, I got 3 kids and I can't support them on $8 an hour, well, you're right, and you're not. That's why you're here, and you're not emaciated. She says, I have a choice between eating and getting to work. Well, if you look at her, she's been eating. So there's something very disingenuous about all this.
Well, there's a bigger issue.
Kevin, just to be fair, I was in the trenches at McDonald's from the day I was 16 for about a year and a half, or maybe near 2, flipping the burgers. I got a scar to prove it, but I think I was making, what was the minimum wage then? $2.40, $2.50.
For me, it was a bucket of quarter.
Let me tell you, I worked for my uncle when minimum wage was $3.35 an hour. My grandmother told him to pay me $2 an hour. She didn't care what government said. She said, pay him $2 an hour.
That's all you were worth.
Yeah, but and you know what? I might have been overpaid. But anyway,
well, that maybe the $3.35 is good now as a radio host.
Right, but the bigger problem with this is that we're trying to dictate what the market needs to do. And in fact, look, we can argue McDonald's is typically a jump-off job. You get started. I have a friend who's a regional manager for McDonald's and makes quite a substantial income, but she worked there a long time. Everybody looks at these jobs as if you've got to you've got to be able to support your family working at a burger joint. Look, nobody forces. I don't think McDonald's is going out interviewing people with a gun to their heads, with the NRA saying you'll sign up or else. Go work somewhere else if you don't want to work at McDonald's. If you don't want to work in fast food, go get an engineering degree, go get a nursing degree. But if you're going to work in fast food, to Peter's point, it's not going to be where where you butter your bread, as the French say. So at the end of the day, why are we having these discussions? You summed it up very succinctly early on. It's politics. It's a way to demonize somebody and say they've got more than you and you should be getting more, without even thinking about what's really at stake here. There's no rocket science to McDonald's. And in fact, when McDonald's was one of my clients when I was a management consultant, and I can tell you they were looking at the McDonald's of the future where there were no employees. What are you going to complain about for minimum wage when they finally get the kinks worked out of that system?
That's another thing, Steve. The job that I had and I worked for a predecessor to McDonald's in my community, Hungry Herman's. It was set up just like a McDonald's. That's right. The name of the place was Hungry Herman's. I'm older than you guys.
It's actually Herman McDonald, but that's a whole other point.
I was paid $1.25 an hour, overpaid even then. Okay, but now the job has really been broken down. I flip burgers and I fried French fries and all that. Now the job is really broken down. One person fries the French fries. One person takes orders. They really don't do very, very much. It's very repetitive, and
it doesn't
it's
matter
hard to say the value is there. $50,000 a year. Come on.
It doesn't matter whether you are a specialist and you dunk the French fries or you make the apple pies. Look at McDonald's for what it is. You learn the fast food business. You learn, if you're smart, you'd go to McDonald's, you wouldn't care what you made, and you'd understand how Cisco delivers the food, when they deliver it, how their logistical system works. You'd understand how they get so many clients through so quickly and all the operational pieces. You'd understand what equipment they use, who are the vendors that have the equipment in those machines, so that you could prepare to run your own fast food joint. Or maybe you want to say, I want to learn how to make a better burger. What we've done is we've taken this idea of entrepreneurship out of the regular marketplace, but you know where they do it? They do it in unions. A union will tell you, you're going to make $13 an hour as a journeyman, and that's it. And nobody complains and says, you know what? Even if you're a great journeyman, you should be making $30 an hour. That's all that a McDonald's job or these entry-level jobs are, is a place for you to learn and get enough experience to go do something on your own. But we lose that in our battle because we start talking about, oh, well, it's not a livable wage, and she's got 3 kids or 14 kids. I didn't have your kids. They aren't George Bush's kids. You had those kids, and you're the one who weren't prepared to take care of them with a regular job.
And by the way, these protesters were bussed in, 32 buses, SEIU,
right.
NAACP, and that's what was going on there. Let me switch.
Using these people. They're using these people. This is a terrible thing that they're doing. This is basically the unions. See, the thing is that McDonald's doesn't employ these people. It's the individual franchisees. They employ them. These are small businessmen and small business women. So they're very difficult to unionize because it's one store at a time you'd have to unionize. And so what they're basically trying to do is unionize them through the government. Let's face it, America has rejected unions. Only 7 to 8% of the private sector workers in America are in a union because unions aren't good for workers. They keep them from advancing. They pay them a lot for not doing very much, so they don't improve themselves. The only exception, if you take the auto workers out of the situation, then there really are hardly any unionized workers at all left in America. Why?
I don't know that I would even use the auto workers. I think with GM in the news, I don't think I'd be touting the auto workers.
Well, I'm just saying, but you take them out of the equation, and because Mr. Obama sort of grandfathered them with the bailout, there really aren't many unionized workers. There's a reason that the UAW lost the contest in Chattanooga to unionize the Tennessee Volkswagen plant. The Volkswagen workers recognize, even though Volkswagen didn't try to stop the union, there was a groundswell of support, grassroots. The workers rose up and said, please, no, not the yoke of socialism. Please don't bring Stalin into my workplace. And they're so right. When you want to feel like in the old Soviet Union, go visit the 16th Street headquarters of the AFL-CIO. Or have a conversation.
All right,
have a conversation with somebody from the UAW. It's nothing but left-wing rhetoric.
Let me bring up another place of business, and that's the United States Postal Service and a House committee approving.
Union shop. It's government.
Yeah, well, there you go. A House committee approving a bill that would end door-to-door delivery for 15 million people. They say it would save about $2 billion a year. In other words, 15 million people who now get their mail delivered to their door will get it somewhere on curbside. And I can only imagine that they're going to have to, someone's going to make out building these curbside mailboxes, which don't exist yet, I would imagine. But, I mean, why don't they just shut this, place down, Kevin, and end the taxpayer burden and let the free market take over?
Not going to do it, because you know what happens when you send things by mail. When you send things by mail, you can involve federal agencies. If you send it by FedEx, you can't. If you want to send your drugs by FedEx, through the courier system, you better use FedEx or UPS. But the minute you send it by the U.S. Postal Service, then it becomes a federal deal. And it's a control factor. It's the reason why you're not going to see any movement on a flat tax or something that simplifies IRS tax code, because that's where they can get you. Who understands that code? Who understands all the interstate commerce laws and the mail laws and things like that? Nobody. Who understands all the banking laws? So if you do something with your bank, all of a sudden you've got all these federal people coming in because you violated some sort of federal banking law. That's all this is about. Look, if the private sector ran the Postal Service, it would have been dramatically different years ago. You'd pick up your mail at a Walmart because they know you're eventually going to go there anyway. They'd make it so simple.
Right.
They would find out what your patterns are. They track you by GPS, and they'd probably have a courier meet you in transit and toss it into your car or something, because they would figure out a better mousetrap. There is no reason.
I want to see it, Kevin. I want to see it delivered by drone. How's that, Peter?
How about little parachutes? They'll just drop them down.
Well, Peter, what about, the future? For how much longer is the taxpayer going to be committed to paying billions and billions of red ink every year?
Well, the thing is the U.S. government is committed to providing postal delivery to every address in the United States. It views it as a basic function of government. And so the question is, how does it get done? One of the problems of the Postal Service, like the IRS and so forth, is it's heavily unionized with lots of work rules, and it's not very nimble. It doesn't adapt to change very well. Why did it take Federal Express to invent express delivery? Why didn't the Postal Service see the opportunity? Well, the answer is that the federal government employs unionized Luddites. That's all there is to it. If these guys were really in charge, the way you say, they would still be having us write our messages down with quill on parchment and wrapping them around in rocks and tying them up with string.
Hey, I will tell you this. I will tell you this in comparison to the
Go ahead, Kevin.
In comparison to the VA, the Postal Service is, you should say, that's where mail goes to die, right?
That's it does eventually get delivered.
No, it doesn't always get delivered.
Guys, great talking to you, and thanks for being on the panel. Appreciate it very much. Peter Morici and Kevin Jackson. Very interesting, and by the way, Postal Service, I still want to get my mail.
Me
so
too.
Don't take this personally.
Yeah.
Okay.
Watch out.
we don't want to take it.
Right.
You never know. All right, guys, take care. All right, folks, so we're going to come back, and when we come back, we're going to talk to the best-selling author, the man behind the films 21 and Social Network. He's going to be here. He's got a brand new one. Don't you go away. Steve Malzberg Show coming back.